Let's bring it back in, everybody. Everybody where they need to be. Finishing up snacks. Okay, thank you. Sixth commandment, you shall not commit adultery, and I'm not going to make anybody read this because this is embarrassing. What does this mean? We are to fear and love God so that we lead pure and decent lives in word and deed, and each of us loves and honors his or her spouse. So you're not really going to be getting married anytime soon. So I wanted to focus on two things that I think will help you, and one is how to be a good friend, because being a good friend is probably the best practice you can have at being a good spouse. Okay? And the other one is how to treat other genders, because that's already coming up in your lives. How do we love and honor our friends? We got into this a little bit on how to help others. So what are ways that we love and honor our friends? How do they do that for us?
Maybe we help them with something, or they help us with something.
Helping out, the things that we need help with, yeah. How about honoring? Have you ever done something for your friend in a public way that lets everybody know that you really think they're awesome? Not everybody would appreciate that. It's true. Some people would probably kill you if you did that, but find a way that really honors them. Okay. What can we do to keep our friendship strong? Others? Girls? You guys what, you don't have friends aren't important to you right now? Is that what you're telling me? No. How do you make sure your friendships stay good? Hang out. Stay in touch. Text. Do whatever social media thing you guys are into these days. I know none of you are on Facebook, but whatever. Have you ever had a friendship that broke up? And right about 6th, 7th, 8th grade is right about that time when friendships start breaking up. Maybe there was somebody you were friends with since kindergarten, and all of a sudden you are not friends with that person anymore. I think I told this group this story. My family moved when I was in 9th grade, so I joined a whole school system in the 9th grade. And all the groups of kids were sort of all in their little collective, they were all in their categories, their cliques. And I found my way eventually. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she's like, yeah, me and Dawn, we were friends and Dawn hung out with the kids your parents do not want you hanging out with, let me just put it that way. And I'm like, how were you ever friends? And she's like, well, she didn't used to be like that. It's like, oh, she fell in with a bad crowd and a bad influence, and my friend didn't. That friendship didn't survive that. So if you think about that friendship you had that broke up, what do you think went wrong? So maybe it was that friend falling under a bad influence, and you're just nope, not going to do that. And you don't have to write this down, because I know this is personal stuff. Maybe you did something wrong. I have messed friendships up too. I've been the one to maybe say something that was hurtful, and I maybe thought I was being funny, and actually might have been funny, but it was actually hurtful, and that person was just I don't think I want to be your friend anymore. So how do the words about leading a pure and decent life apply to you today? What are we talking about with pure and decent? So we're talking about sexuality on one hand, but what is pure and decent? Decent. Do you kind of have an idea what that is? If you were to name somebody you consider to be a pure and decent person, could you think of somebody?
Mary.
Okay. How about in real life that you know today? Do your friends or a friend's parents or Abe, was that Hannah?
Yeah.
I have a friend named Lucas Loshaw.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably who I think of first when I think of pure and decent.
Okay, good. So you, somebody that you know, anybody else, and you don't, just raise your hand. I'm not gonna make you say their name. Can you think of somebody? Well, hold on to that. And as you go through your life, think about if you can come up with those people that you know. And then think, you know, if we all rub off on each other. So if there's somebody that's really good that way, then you spend time with them and they'll be a little bit more respectful. So now here's the hard part. What are some things boys and men do that are disrespectful or harmful to girls or women? You can probably think of something that happened today. And either boys or girls can answer this. I know you're not saying anything because you don't have any examples. I know that's not the reason. Girls, anybody want to toss something out there? You want to whisper something? Write something down? Pass me a note? Send me a text. My phone's already there. Sending me a text isn't gonna work. So I think we all know it's all sitting here. How about if you think a girl is wearing something that is a little too, you know, do you say anything? Are you mean? Do you know boys that do? Do you make remarks? Girls, do you make remarks about other girls if you think what they're wearing isn't what it should be? I guess we're talking about boys and men, but sometimes girls can be mean to other girls. So we know that that happens, right? And so think about that, about yourself and the other boys that you know, the other men, the men that you know in your life. Sometimes you'll have a coach, and this was actually this hit national news. Was it a NFL coach? What was that guy's name? About, he was making comments and calling the guys, he was like, oh, you're girls, you know, because they're not like, he was like doing that to inspire them to be tougher. He actually called them a worse name than girls. But, so you might have a coach that kind of tries to motivate you by calling you girls or being disrespectful to women, and like especially the older boys that you look up to, they might do things and you might think that's how things are done. So the pure and decent life in the sixth commandment is being respectful. Are there things that girls and women do that are disrespectful or harmful to boys or men? What do the boys think? It does happen. It's not quite as serious usually, but it's something to think about. Maybe it's sometimes guys, it can be humiliated if you laugh at them. I mean, it hurts when you're a girl too, but so we need to be careful about that. So I'm going to talk about trans people. Transsexuality is fully embraced by the ELCA, and I brought our social statement that actually says that. I'm going to read that for you and for everybody who's watching. This was from 2019. This is the ELCA website. It says this church teaches that the God who justifies expects all people to seek justice in earthly relationship structures and systems. The ELCA, and that's us, the ELCA, calls for sustained and renewed efforts through which women, girls, and gender non-conforming people experience greater equity and justice. The following commitments express this church's firm hope for renewed social relationships and structures that benefit the common good. And it has quite a few. It cites scripture, it cites Lutheran confessions, and then the next one is to advocate and support laws, policies, and practices that respect diverse bodies rather than discriminating against them, objectifying, or devaluing them. Girls, women, and people who identify as non-binary must not be deprived of their human or civil rights. So that's our ELCA. Do any of you know anybody who's transitioned from male to female or female to male? Okay. So this is not a foreign subject to you. And I know that our synod, South Central Synod of Wisconsin, we have at least one trans person as a pastor in the synod, and we may have more of whom I am simply unaware. So what are things that cisgender people do that are disrespectful or harmful to trans people? Helen?
You might not accept them.
Might not be accepting of them. Might call them by they're called their dead name, the name that they were given at birth, the name that they don't want you to use that represents who they were and not who they are. Did somebody just get fired out of the Biden administration for misgendering somebody? I guess in the Washington Post. So it's on Twitter, it was pretty bad. So that's a new thing for us to all figure out. And the statement was written in 2019, which is really, really recent. So our church, we belong to a church that really thinks about this carefully. And we pray about it. And that's why we have youth reps on our synod council, on our church-wide assemblies, on the committees that write all this stuff. We have kids between the ages, whatever age you are when you're confirmed, all the way up to age 30, I guess, is the youth vote. And we want your voices. We care what you think. And your presence and your beliefs and your pointing out where things are unjust have changed this church and shaped it. And it's been your voices calling out for justice for your friends and the people that you care about that shaped that statement. Because some of us are like, do, 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 do. You know, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it doesn't occur to me to like stand up and say that it's right. Like we all have 100 categories of things that we're like, well, we know it's wrong, but I'm not necessarily going to stand up and talk about it. I actually have two cousins, each of whom has a child who is transitioned from female to male. And those young men are about age 20 right now. So, you know, we're kind of all trying to figure this out together. There are a lot of people, your parents' age, us old people. We don't get it because we have way too much to think through. We think about it too much, I think. And it was not a thing when we were growing up. So we maybe need to do a better job of really listening harder to you. And also, especially to the kids who are like, I don't think I actually am. So they make a distinction between sex and gender. And sex is what you're born with, and gender is who you are. And so when somebody's like, well, that's not working for me, it's like, oh, well, what does that mean for you? You know, instead of just shutting them down and saying, well, there's something wrong with you. So some people say, well, why would God create, how could you mess with what God created? And it's just like, well, I don't know, folks. Why would I mess with what God created? God can only work with what God's given. Could God have made me a black person? No. Because my parents' DNA all said I'm going to be white. God can only work with what they're, I mean, we have all kinds of surgery. I mean, kids are born with all kinds of things wrong, and we're so grateful that we can do surgery today. Some kids are born with a hole in their heart, and a generation ago, 2 generations ago, they would have died. But now science can fix that, and sometimes they can fix it before the baby's even born. So we aren't born perfect. We aren't born even the way God intends us to be. We are not truly, and we don't know what God intends for us to be. We can never truly know that. But a lot of people You know, sometimes kids are born and they have surgery right away to fix something that's clearly wrong. And so, well, how can that person be born? How did God let that happen? God lets a lot of stuff happen. And just because we don't, it doesn't, you know, when we're born, we already, through flawed humanity, and look at how susceptible we are to disease. We've all spent, you know, the last year and a half, and you guys especially with your school being messed up, it's like, why didn't God make us impervious to disease? Well, he didn't, so guess what? I got a shot in my arm to fix that. I think most of you did as well. Actually, you got 2 shots. And some of you might be on your 3rd. And younger kids are lined up to get theirs very soon. I think that's the biggest question around transsexuality that we have. And until you really think about it or meet somebody, it's just hard to wrap your brain around it. But that's where the ELCA is. And we've gotten there because of kids like you. So, thank you for making our church a better place, more just. We are grateful. So, now that we've got that over with, whew, how would your life be better if everybody else followed the 6th commandment? Maybe if men and boys didn't say things about women's bodies. And sometimes girls can say mean things about boys' bodies too. That hurts. How would your life be better if you followed the 6th commandment? Oh, this is always so hard. I hate this one. How about leading a pure and decent life? Does that help you at all? Yeah? What do you think? Oh, that was you just playing with, you're just messing around. Okay, Helen? Did you want to share that with us, or you're just thinking that it does? Okay. Well, I just gave my whole speech about how you, your life is better if you follow the 10. I think that again, it's a kind of what goes around comes around. You know, you treat people decently, no matter who they are, and that actually does make you a better person. It does actually feel good to treat people well. And that most people of the time, people will return that, being a good person to you. And there is that not feeling guilty, you know, the sleeping at night, you're like, oh, I did a good thing for somebody today. I stood up for my friend when they were being teased for being gay. How would everybody else's life be better if you followed the 6th commandment? I think we know the answer to that one, right? Okay. All right. Well, that wraps up my portion of this. Questions, thoughts? I know nobody's going to want to talk about sex with their pastor, and that's fine, but I'm just going to toss it out there because it's part of being human, and this is church, and we deal with stuff like that. So, I'm really glad I have it on record about what I said and what I didn't say, because I can only imagine what somebody's going to go home and tell their parents I said. Is there anything that is unclear about what I said? Okay, well, please feel free to, I hope you guys all have my phone number and email. Send me an email, send me a text, give me a call. I know you guys don't use your phones to talk, but whatever. Write a note, tuck it under the door at church. Mail me a letter here at church, right? Because that's going to happen. So this is a way of getting the conversation started, and all of this stuff, 4th, 5th, 6th commandment, these are the beginnings of conversations you will continue to have really forever, right? Parents? Marcia? Still, you've been talking about this since you were 14 years old, maybe even younger than that, and you're still thinking of it. And we're all still learning. We're still learning how to do this better. So we do this together, and we're going to close with a prayer. Lord, we thank you for everybody here. We thank you for the many ways you show us of learning from each other, of teaching each other. As a pastor, I'm so grateful for all these kids, for the way that they love their friends, for the way that they stand up for each other, for the way that they think about how to help each other. I'm so grateful for them. And we ask that you would help us as adults to take their lead and to be good to each other and to help each other. And we thank you for our whole congregation. And we thank you that we are all part of your body together. Amen.